Well, these stories were always coming.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
What's going on, people? Let's get it out of the way. I've shaved, and yes, I do realise I look like a malnourished, anemic newt. That's right. The amphibian has returned on YouTube. Yeah, you know what's... because I had a stubble and a beard for so long, I feel like the face is whiter where the hair used to be. And also, you know when, like, guys with beards, or keep beards, or facial hair will know that when you shave, especially when you get a bit older, you just start to get this doughiness that you recognise in your face. And, like, if you're really carved up and, you know, your jawline's looking good, shaving's great. But not always. So I've learnt my lesson. Anyway, welcome back to Football Therapy. You probably didn't expect the beginning of the video to be me talking about how I look like a newt, but here we are. Welcome back to the channel. David Ornstein's dropped an article about Conor Gallagher possibly being sold, speaking to Aston Villa, which is top 4 club, actually, lest we forget. I know he's been linked to Tottenham. Tottenham aren't currently a top 4 club. Aston Villa are in the Champions League, and they're quite an exciting project. We are going to reference the story, talk about Conor Gallagher. I'm going to give you my, thoughts on the scenario, totally. And we're going to get into all of it today, friends. So thank you for joining me. Lots of content on the channel at the moment. Do consider subscribing because there's so much content and stuff for you to learn, for me to share, and for us to grow together. Right. Firstly, Conor Gallagher. Don't need to remind you, great player. Great player, great young man. Impressive professional individual. Had a great game for England the other day. One of the better performers. Even if he doesn't start for England, he's definitely getting called up and being utilised in most matches, probably off the bench. Maybe as a starter, who knows? He speaks very well. He's a little bit Essex. But he spoke very well about the Chelsea and Maresca. He's a great character. He represents pure profit, doesn't he? If you guys watch this channel regularly, you will know my position on Conor Gallagher. I love him. I've also been very consistent about how I don't necessarily think he's going to be a starter at Chelsea long term. But I think that I just want to keep him regardless, if that's the fact, even if he isn't a starter. I feel like he's an excellent squad player, much like Southgate's season for England. But he loves Chelsea. He's a professional. He's a role model. He's a bit of a leader. And I want to keep him. But we know with these owners, these sporting directors, they don't see room for sentiment in what they're trying to do in terms of getting ahead and becoming good in what they vision would make Chelsea good as quickly as possible. And that is with, like, you know, for example, with like Pochettino, sorting that out quickly, moving on, ripping the band-aid off, ripping the plaster off, and being like, right, make sacrifice. You know, Mason Mount in the summer, selling Mason Mount. I know, like, history has been kind to them with that decision with Mount, you know, injury issues and, you know, the sort of kissy faces romance with Man United and his old man. We all sort of went, fine then, see you later. Do you know what I mean? And then when he was like fighting with Enzo Fernandez, Chelsea versus United, everyone got behind Enzo and basically no love lost. That wouldn't happen with Conor Gallagher at all. I'm not suggesting that would do. You know, Conor is a lifelong Chelsea fan who comes from a family of Chelsea fans. Mount simply isn't. He's a Pompey fan, and his old man's a Man United fan. Yes, but this isn't about Mason Mount. This is about Conor Gallagher. We'll talk a little bit more about, you know, could it be okay to sell him after the article I reference here. So let's hop in and see what Ornstein's writing. For reference, I heard Ornstein speak about this on the Athletic podcast, but he's published an article just recently on this. Aston Villa have held talks with Chelsea preliminary. And this word always does me. Preliminary. There you go. You just really got to break it down. Talks with Chelsea about a move to sign Conor Gallagher. Bearing in mind, him being a Chelsea fan, dire Chelsea fan, I wonder if he'd see Aston Villa as a Champions League club, you know, lest we forget, currently. You don't feel like Aston Villa, no disrespect, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel Aston Villa are going to stay a top 4 club, personally, but maybe. But he might see it as a great opportunity, and he probably, if he is a massive Chelsea fan, he probably just doesn't want to go to Tottenham, even though Tottenham are massive fans of his. Gallagher is entering the final 12 months of his contract at Stamford Bridge and has emerged as a top target for Unai Emery. Villa are looking to enhance their squad after achieving Champions League qualification for the first time, and manager Emery is a huge admirer of the England midfielder. The Midland side are also in contact with Gallagher's camp as they explore a potential deal following the 24-year-old's excellent form last season. Loads of teams would want Conor Gallagher, especially you can see for the way Aston Villa play, that high octane midfield, and John McGinn pressing like crazy. Like him and McGinn in the midfield would be wild. Would be a problem. It would be like, oh, I got to play up against Gallagher and McGinn tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like it would be, it's very much suited to Unai Emery's football. There is a healthy relationship between the clubs. The new Chelsea hierarchy dealt with Villa when recruiting Carney Chukwuemeka in 2022, and the West London team retain a strong interest in Villa striker John Duran. Colombia international Duran, who's 20, was considered by Chelsea in January and again is among the candidates to strengthen their front line this summer, while inquiries have also arrived from Italy, Saudi Arabia and Spain. Saudi Arabia going for the youngsters. All right, let's get into this. Firstly, John Duran, by the way, many of you might roll your eyes, but he does actually look pretty good. Did he score a hat-trick or a brace off the bench in a recent game? And he's being slowly integrated by Unai, but highly rated. Yeah, so firstly, it's important to note that if Gallagher got his way, if he had a decision, if he had a choice, and say, right, what do you want to be the outcome here? He'd probably say, stay at Chelsea fan, sign how old is he, 24, so he probably doesn't want to do a 7-year deal, sign a 5-year deal, so he'd still be under 30 when it expires. I'm speculating here, by the way. I'm not. So sign a 5-year deal with Chelsea, on high money. And when I say high money, I'm talking much higher than your Mudryks and way higher than Cole Palmer. Though Cole Palmer will get more money eventually. He just will. I think he wants parity with Moises Caicedo. So I think Caicedo is possibly the highest earner of the recent Project 2030 signings. I think Caicedo might be on 180k a week. Now that's still just over half of what we originally gave Lukaku. So it just goes to show you how much wages have decreased. And they're still twice as much as Mudryk. So a lot of our new signings don't earn that much in relative terms. So he'd probably say, give me a 5-year deal on 108k a week, I'll stay at Chelsea. But Chelsea are probably thinking, okay, so there's two things to consider from the Chelsea perspective, right? I wonder I'm trying to figure out in my head if Chelsea would even give him a contract or what they'd do to give him a contract. I think if he said, all right, I'll sign a 7-year deal for 100k a week, would they go, all right, here you go? They'd probably still try and flog him down the line, though, to be honest. But are they even offering him a deal? Because apparently there's an impasse, with contract negotiations. But it's so tough because there's two things to consider with them wanting to sell Conor Gallagher. Firstly, the obvious elephant in the room is the PSR rule stuff, the pure profit asset. His stock's very high, not just because he had a good season, because he's a great character. Lots of teams want him. Tottenham, the Champions League clubs want him, basically. Aston Villa being one. And it's an opportunity to sell him for probably, I don't know, because Aston Villa, they're not going to spend crazy money. But maybe because they've got that Champions League money, that would be a massive cash injection for Villa. So I wonder if they could push the boat out and spend £40 million on Conor Gallagher, despite him only having 12 months left on his deal. Mason Mount had higher stock, just sort of Champions League winner, the boy who had a dream and all this kind of stuff. Mason Mount went for 55 plus 5, and he went to United, who've got loads of money to spend, usually, anyway. Villa won't have the money to spend as United do because they just don't make that much organic revenue like Man United, but they do have Champions League money. So I'm wondering, and I'm speculating 40 million quid. 40 million quid for a pure profit sale is massive. 25 million is being really helpful with Trevoh Chalobah or, Armando Broja. That is massive boon towards Chelsea's books. But sell a player for, say a 40 million pounds, they will see that as a massive opportunity financially. Now, I'll sort of finish the video bringing it on home with my full thoughts on Conor. What we need to consider here is looking forwards, not looking backwards. And I'm not saying that's necessarily correct. I'm thinking this is what the sporting directors are doing here. And I think they want to change. Look, Conor Gallagher played really well under Pochettino. He's a great player. He can play well probably under a lot of managers. But I wonder if the sporting directors have been drawing up this long-term philosophy, ethos, style of play, etc., and they're looking for this sort of metronomic passing technician style of football. Now, no matter what you think of Gallagher, you can talk about strengths and weaknesses. His biggest strength is he's a high-octane pressing player. He gets stuck in. He's good at high. Tuchel loved him for high turnovers. He works really hard. He blocks passing lanes. He presses opposition on the ball. He can win the ball back. Like I say, high turnovers, get going. Really, really high value stuff that managers like Unai Emery and Mauricio Pochettino love. I wonder, because they've obviously had their differences with Pochettino, but they're going for a different style of football now. They're going for I'm not saying Enzo Maresca's like Pep Guardiola at Man City. By the way, big stories coming out of Man City. I did cover that. Man City suing the Premier League on my second channel, Football Yannick, which is a wild story, by the way. So, yeah, Football Yannick on YouTube if you want to hear my thoughts on that. But look, Conor Gallagher, does he start for Manchester City? No, and not because he's not a good footballer, because he's not a Man City style player. He's just not. Man City do press and quickly get back on you, but it's a systemic thing with the team. It's a whole team formula thing. It's not like a guy running around putting out fires like an N'Golo Kante or indeed a Conor Gallagher. So I wonder if, with Enzo Maresca or generally building a squad to play a brand of football, they are thinking, right, this probably doesn't lend itself to Conor Gallagher's greatest strengths, and actually we've had a result here because he's had a great season and we can sell him for a lot of money and won't be in financial problems. Now, Chelsea fans are going to friggin' hate this, but they will look at it in a heartless way, in a cold, calculated way. They'll be like, okay, well, look, we're here, we want to get here, and trust me, here is for the greater good for everyone. For us, Chelsea fans, players, everyone wants us to get here. Chelsea fans would like us to get there by, academy players, love, togetherness, do you know what I mean? Like no ruthless heartlessness. But they're just saying, look, sweep the board, get everyone off. And yes, the fans will be upset. Football's very fickle. They'll get over it in, X amount of time. Let's just do what we can to quickly get there. And look, this kind of outlook has been demonstrated in all their behaviour so far. So that's what I think is probably happening. Look, man, it's never gone away, the Conor Gallagher is for sale thing. It's never gone away, and it's just starting to be talked about. I'm not saying he's definitively going to be sold, but am I surprised at all that this story is coming out now? No, not at all. And like I said, I've always maintained for months and months and months, maybe even over a year, that I love Gallagher. I want him to stay at Chelsea if feasible, but I don't necessarily think he's going to be a starter in the Chelsea team that wins the Premier League. But I'm not saying I want to sell him. If we can keep him, keep him. If we can find a way to put him on a contract on wages that fits in, he will be a very useful player to start a lot of games, to come off, to feature him probably every single game. Whether he started or he's coming off the bench to be this pressing closer to win the ball back or just to, hassle opposition players. I feel like he's a useful squad player. He's an excellent player. He's a certain profile that will be useful regardless of his style of football, because you'll always need that opportunity for that kind of player. But I understand if there's a position in where he's not a starter for Chelsea, and if he's not a starter for Chelsea and he retains that much value, pure profit value, I understand from their perspective why they would want to sell him. They're not Chelsea fans, the Chelsea owners. They're not. They are business people. They are sporting people in terms of the sporting directors that have a target, and they want to meet that target, and that target will be winning, but they'll get there the most efficient, brutally business efficient way, and that's where we are at. Yeah, a lot of people don't like Conor Gallagher. Chelsea fans as well. A lot of Chelsea fans never liked this sort of like, you know, they call him a road runner, don't they? Like this sort of just pressing player. And to me, I don't agree with that. There's a lot of the sort of hipster football fans that love Sarri ball. And, you know, by the way, Maresca's ball might be quite similar to Sarri ball. Like that, we're going to be passing technicians. It's going to be a system now, and it's not less about just pressing. And there wasn't. And Pochettino's Chelsea didn't do too. Look, it's not the greatest advert for that, you know, chaotic pressing football, is it? Pochettino's football. Like, it was fun. We scored a lot of goals. I think the biggest positive out of it is Cole Palmer had the freedom to have an excellent season that won him loads of awards and accolades. I don't necessarily think that's going to continue now the football's changing. But the reality is, like, we conceded loads of goals. Even when we had that run of wins at the end, it never felt safe, did it? It always felt like the opposition can score. And Pochettino's Chelsea wasn't a great advert for that sort of high-octane pressing. Like, you know, the prime Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool was a good advert for it, not Chelsea last season. So it's annoying because I feel like a Conor Gallagher in like you know, what was it, 2018 Liverpool side would have been amazing. Do you know what I mean? He would have been like one of their like most important players to win a Premier League and a Champions League. But we're not going to play football like that, and I think that's probably why we're here at this point. He's a great player. Wherever he goes, he'll be excellent. Because where he goes, they'll be wanting him to do what he does best. Yes, don't get it twisted. If you said, Jan, can you choose? I keep him. I put him on I find a compromise. Find a compromise with him, but also let him know that, you know. And by the way, I don't want to condemn Gallagher to just. I'm not saying that he can't pass or hasn't got any technical ability. I'm just saying it's not his greatest strength, and his greatest strengths lie elsewhere that might have better value in other styles of play than what we're going into. So you got to be big boy about this. Do you know what I mean? But I'd keep him because I think he'd be such a useful asset regardless, and he's such an impressive, like, young professional as well. So let me know what you think, gang. It's pretty heavy, but football's heavy. Yes, sorry about shaving. Sorry about being a newt. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you back here very soon. Peace.